These days you have to think Roman when you come to Ribchester. It's become a well-known site with the remains of an old fort sitting on the River Ribble and protecting the route north to Hadrian's Wall. It was built in 70 AD and was staffed over most of the 2 or 3 centuries that it existed by Roman conscripts brought in from all corners of their empire, but particularly in the case of Ribchester, the Eastern European areas. So it's quite likely that any of the families who've lived in Ribchester for a few centuries may well have some Eastern European blood in their family lines, because the old conscripts were given land in the countries where they served. But this was a bit of a posh fort. They spent a lot of money with lots of columns and the famous Ribchester parade helmet, which is now in the British Museum with a replica on show in the Ribchester Roman Museum, which is a very pleasant little place. They've done a good job of interpreting the occupation of this land by Roman forces over many centuries. It was a key position, holding the various routes from the south up to Hadrian's Wall, and quite a massive set of buildings, but they were just about obliterated once the Romans left. There was little respect for those Roman remains when the church was built on top of them, for instance. And most of them were just lumps of stone and a handy quarry for the locals to build their cottages. But some real money was spent here. Some really fancy column tops, some statues and the everyday pieces of life, quernstones and pots, jugs and glassware, the sort of things that give you a feel for how these people lived 1,000 years ago. But since then, as I say, the church was built on top of the place, and it's a rather odd building with all sorts of bits and pieces about it that don't fit into any easy description of architectural style. It looks more like a posh house than anything else in places, and there are all sorts of Roman bits and pieces built into the structures. And of course it's on the very ground where the fort once stood. And the village itself is a mixture. One of the old pubs uses some Roman columns at its entranceway, and the cottages from later are weavers' cottages with lots of high, big windows to allow the weavers to work in the homes. Now it's a peaceful, easy to live in place, sitting between Preston and Clitheroe on the lovely River Ribble.